Today's scripture is from Romans chapter 14, lines 7 through 10. We do not live to ourselves, and we do not die to ourselves. If we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. To this end, Christ died and lived again, so that he might be Lord of both the dead and the living. Why do you pass judgment on your brother or sister? Or you, why do you despise your brother or sister? For we all stand before the judgment seat of God.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Fry. I'm going to read a retelling of the book Old Turtle. So it's kind of a summary, and the art that's going to be up there was done by Emma Gentry and Kiara Sparks. Okay. So, long ago, an argument arose between mountains and rivers, stars and ants, lions and bears on the nature of God. All of creation believed they knew who, where, and what God was. A terrible cacophony of voices rang out until wise old Turtle shouted, "Stop!" In her ancient voice, she slowly said, "God is all that we dream of, and all that we seek, all that we come from, and all that we can find." Old Turtle foretold that a strange new family of beings would arrive on Earth, as reminders of all that God is. Then the diverse family of humans came. They were a message of love from God and a prayer from the earth. But soon, disagreement was heard again as the world's people forgot their special role. They began to argue about where God was and was not, and about whether God was or was not. They often misused their unique powers, raised voice and fist against one another, harming and killing each other and the earth. Until finally, even the forests and the rivers and the oceans began to die. All because humans could not agree on who God was. Finally, the elements and animals of the earth cried, "Stop!" They saw that God was everywhere and in everything. God is both near and far, loud and quiet, mighty and meek. Finally, the people began to listen and to see God in one another and in the beauty of the earth. And Old Turtle smiled, and so did God.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Munley. I joined the youth group here at First Congregation around 5th grade, and since joining, I've been on 2 work camps, once in St. Louis and once in South Dakota. For those of you who don't know what work camp is, it's an opportunity the high schoolers earn to go work and serve in other places around the country. 2 years ago, my freshman year, St. Louis was chosen for the destination. We were working with the homeless population in the center of the city, and we stayed in a church that had a separate section for feeding the homeless. We were staying in the upper part of the church, and there was comfortable beds and food, and even a basketball court was provided for us. So our goals for the meals was to eat with the homeless people and make connections with them, but this didn't work, to say the least. Every meal they got more and more upset with us as we tried to eat with them. It got to the point where we had to sit in a separate room than them. I didn't really understand this at first. We were trying to get to know them. We were trying to make connections with them. Why wouldn't they let us? Then someone said something to me that has stayed with me to this day. We were living the life they wanted. We were staying in comfortable beds all night long, and while they got kicked outside around 6 p.m. after dinner. We were sitting in their seats in the dining room that already didn't have enough seats for everyone and eating their food when it was clear that we could afford to buy our own. We were trying to help, but in the process, we hurt those we hoped to serve. This hit me hard. I went to St. Louis subconsciously thinking of myself almost as above these people, as if the youth group was there to save them. But I was so wrong. Later that week, we had a bingo tournament for those who hung around the shelter during the day. I realized that my job isn't to think of them as less than me. My job was to make them laugh, to make their day by high-fiving them when they got 5 in a row on bingo and throwing them a piece of candy. In the book Old Turtle, the animals disagree in how they see God. In the beginning of the week, I saw things from a different perspective than the homeless people, but by the end, I saw them for who they are, equals. God doesn't care how much money someone makes or if they can hold a job or support a family. God only cares if you are doing just that, caring enough to genuinely treat people the way they deserve to be treated. From that moment on, I saw things from their perspective. I saw how hard it was for such loving families with so much pride to feed their children. I realized that even though they're as hardworking as you and me, they just had bad luck. And though I may live a different life than them, we're all the same in the end, and they deserve to be treated that way. Last year, our work camp trip was to the Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota, and we were volunteering with the Lakota tribe, and it was a whole new ballgame. This week was probably the most emotionally challenging week of my entire life. After the trip, my mom asked me how it went, and I said, I can't talk about it. I didn't and still don't have the words to describe everything that happened. There are so many amazing stories I could tell you about the Lakota tribe, but instead I'm going to tell you about the youth that was volunteering there. We weren't the only youth group in South Dakota. There's 2 others, one from Missouri and one from Wisconsin, and we didn't get along at first. The values of the other 2 churches didn't seem to align with the values of our church. In fact, some of them were even polar opposites. Our church includes all, no matter your race, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. We go above and beyond to not only help members of our church, but in our community as well. I didn't see these values that are the foundation of our church in the other youth groups at first. I was already emotional from hearing hundreds of stories about the inhumane treatment of the Lakota people, so it was a struggle to get along with the other youth whose words and actions communicated that they didn't seem to care about the real reasons we were there. In one instance, the girls from another group, the group from Missouri, they were throwing perfectly good grapes against the kitchen cabinet that we were staying in and watching them splatter as if it was some sort of game. I found this really upsetting. Number 1, it wasn't our church to mistreat, and number 2, we were in a place where fresh fruits and vegetables were so hard to come by, so it made me angry to see them do this. How could people who are there supposedly to help and serve and care for others do things that hurt our purpose? The struggle to get to know the other groups lasted the whole week, and I tried my best to include them in every way. There was an area in the church that we were staying in where you could write letters to new people that you met throughout the week. I received one from a kid named Gabe, and he was from the Wisconsin youth group, and I brought it with me here today. He wrote, I am so thankful because I got the privilege to meet you and be in a group with you. You were quiet at first, but I expected that because I'm the same. But when I started talking to you, like when we were washing dishes, I found out that we have somewhat of some similarities, like how we love Wisconsin. I'm thankful. You were God's gift to me during this amazing experience because you were a big reason I had a great time. Also, thanks for all the hellos. It meant a lot to me, Gabe. That's when I realized that although our beliefs may not align in every subject, it didn't always matter. I saw God in a different way than the other youth groups, but it didn't matter in the end because we both saw God and the meaning behind community service. My friend Tess told me a quote the other day that says, community service isn't always about serving others. Sometimes it's about serving ourselves, and this rang true to me in so many ways. I'm so thankful that I've gotten so many opportunities in my life to serve, but more than that, I'm thankful for how I've grown as a result. The lessons that I learned about true service, both in South Dakota and St. Louis, I use every day. I treat people as equals. I listen to those who need it. I help without bias or judgment. And most importantly, I learned that although you may disagree, it doesn't make your faith in God any less valid. I can't wait to see what I learned this year at work camp.
Hi, I'm Andrew Perry. And in the book Old Turtle, these picture books teach very simple lessons, and they're intended for young children. Yet I think we can all take very valuable lessons away from them. Too often people argue from the biggest to most trivial matters. If we can't find the middle ground in basic questions, how are we going to find middle ground in agreement in religion or in politics? If we want a peaceful world, how are we to achieve when we see the other side as being wrong, incorrect, immoral? It's so easy to look at our world and see a globe torn apart by war, hatred, injustice, corruption, intolerance. In Old Turtle, people brought destruction to each other in the land because they believed only they knew God and they had the right God. And that's what we have today. In the course of human history, we have fought thousands of wars, and hundreds of those have been on religion. And whether it be the medieval crusades or the Islamic State, people can never find a middle ground. Amazingly, Christianity and Islam seem so different, and that's what we see in today's media. Yet both religions are based on love, acceptance, tolerance, devotion to one God. By now, Islam and Christianity's core message have been diluted in hatred and divide people across the world. The terror of ISIS is proof of how we humans can twist religion. Over 9 million people, both Muslims and Christians alike, have been forced to flee because of this perverted caliphate. But it's not just a problem with Islam, it's a problem with us. As progressive Christians, we see ourselves as being stewards of the earth, good neighbors, yet we continue to turn away refugees and immigrants at our borders simply because they are different from us and they don't speak the same language, they don't practice the same religion. How is that being a good neighbor to someone in need? Across Europe and the United States, we've seen this wave of nationalism and xenophobia with Donald Trump, the rise of the far right in German politics. It's pretty distressing, actually, because we have seen the once open borders of the European Union now closed, and Syrian refugees cannot find a safe place to claim asylum. The Dublin Agreement set out by the European Union to protect refugees and let them claim asylum has failed, and so have we. We have failed to provide support for these thousands of families affected by a terrorist organization that does not represent Islam or any of its values. From across the ocean, we may seem disconnected, far away, helpless to help these people. Yet, there are hundreds of organizations from large NGOs and well-known groups such as UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross, UNHCR. They have the capital to support large refugee camps, but we all know what happens. We've seen the pictures from Idomeni in Greece, from Dadaab in Kenya. These places are places of squalor, places of utter and not sanitary conditions for other humans. But there are smaller organizations working to help these refugees. These are the organizations that I believe really are doing the most work because they don't have a $1 billion budget. They can work one-on-one with each family. They create a human connection that is lost in refugee camps. So when you look at our world and you see a world torn apart by terror, religion, politics, it may seem very dark and frankly pretty scary, but these organizations provide a glimmer of hope for our future. And also, I know our future is in good hands because we have communities like First Congregation. When I look out into the pews today, I see doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, innovators, mentors, parents, grandparents, godparents, uncles, brothers, aunts, sisters. In our community, we have people from every walk of life, and while we do not necessarily share the same thoughts, we all share a wish for acceptance and understanding. We believe in a God who teaches us to accept everyone, while other religions and churches promote exclusion. We welcome all, and we want all. We have a group here that is truly incredible. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, black, white, brown, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. We accept all. We want all to listen and hear what each other has to say. And that's what I'd like for you to take into the next week. Don't necessarily see the other side as wrong, but see them as someone with a different viewpoint. Understand how they came to that conclusion. Although they may be wrong, in your eyes, they see you also as wrong. Accept them for who they are and judge them not on their beliefs or ideas, but on their actions. Judge them for what they do, not what they think. Thank you.
We find ourselves taking the easy route, making choices out of convenience. We may take the car because we are running late or are lazy, or we may use plastic bags at the store because we forgot our reusable ones.
Though we hear all around us that the earth is suffering greatly because of human actions, we are prone to act for ourselves instead of the greater good of God's creation. With these concerns heavy on our hearts, we offer this prayer to you.
God, please help us to feel your spirit in the midst of our selfishness. Guide us to be thoughtful and courageous, allowing your love to flow through us to people and the earth. Help us to think wisely before we act, to consider the unintended consequences of what we say and do.
Thank you for loving us unconditionally and planting teachers in our lives to show us a higher way. We pray, knowing that nothing can ever separate us from your love, using the prayer Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I know I express gratitude for all of us and saying thank you to all of our youth and to Eli, who are leading us in worship this day. Our prayer unfolds in the life that we share as a community, and to that end, I invite those of you who are sitting along the side aisle to reach down and to take the friendship pad, to sign it and to pass it down the row and pass it back again. And if you are new in the midst of us, we are so glad that you are here today, and we hope that you will write your name and your contact information. If you leave us an email address, we will write you back. We also hope that everyone will stay for a time of fellowship following our service downstairs in Plymouth Hall. As you exit the rear of the sanctuary into the narthex and you turn right, you'll find a set of stairs that will take you down to Plymouth Hall. If you go to the left and down the hallway, there is an elevator that will take you to the same place. Today, there are donuts in honor of all of our youth. Let me also call your attention to a few announcements in your bulletin. On May 17th, we are hosting the choir from Central College in Iowa, and there is an urgent need for more host families. So if you have a couple of extra beds that you could offer for the night, please be in touch with Kaisa. Her email address is in the bulletin. Next Saturday, May 14th, is our Ministry of Last Things Fair. It's a first gathering of this new initiative as we seek to support one another, intending to end of life concerns, medical, financial, familial, and spiritual. What are the things that you need to put in order to be in conversation with others about and to contemplate so that you can live your life more fully with less worry? What do you believe about life and death and life after death? Surely by noontime on Saturday, we will have not completely answered all of these questions. We will have just gotten started, but it's a really important place to begin. And following, at the end of that time, which begins from 9 until noon, we will have an opportunity to really explore what it is that's next for this ministry. What are the other times that we need to gather, and what will they look like? Please also note the announcement in the bulletin about Gratitude Sunday, May 29th, and the invitation to bring food for our fellowship hour in honor of some blessing in your life, some party food. There is a sign up for that in the link. And as we give thanks this day for our youth and their worship leadership, we also wish you a happy Mother's Day. We give thanks for mothers, for those who have given us birth, and for those who have nurtured our growth in every way. We also hold in our hearts this day all those for whom this particular day is difficult, for those whom it serves as a reminder of hopes unfulfilled and loved ones no longer living. On this day, we also particularly give thanks for the life of Beverly Henley, a longtime member of this church who died last Sunday. A worship service in her memory will be held on August 6th in the chapel, and we will remind you of that date as it draws closer. May we also hold in our concern and our prayers Ernie Filer, who is in the hospital with pneumonia, and Anita Miller's son Brett, recovering from a traumatic brain